We're back, people, and today we're breaking down film on Willie Gay Jr., Miami Dolphins' newest linebacker, just added yesterday. This guy is a freak of nature athletically, has solid size. He's kind of like, they added KJ Britton. He's kind of like the complete opposite of that player. I think the linebacker room is actually pretty intriguing with some of the things you could do with these guys after Jordan Brooks. Like, I think all of them will see some playing time, but this guy flies. Like, he has some insane speed and range. I think for him, you just kind of have to keep things simple. Like, he's not a very super instinctive, true off-ball linebacker type. You know, he played for the Saints last year. Before that, he spent like all of his career with the Chiefs. You know, has been around with some winning. But I think he's a guy that, like, he has some interesting usage too. Like, he's played like some edge off-ball. He's played off, you know, as like a nickel overhang defender. Like, he has that sort of athleticism. But he's not someone I think you want like truly playing like true off-ball where you have to like read and diagnose the run concepts every play. That's really not a strength of his. You kind of want to keep things simple, kind of give him that one read. Like, he'll make some plays versus the run from time to time, but when things aren't like super muddied and he has to sort through the trash. But man, he has that athleticism that he can make up for it even when he takes himself out of position. He's also pretty physical, definitely willing to take on blocks. He'll never be the linebacker that like racks up a bunch of tackles because of, you know, maybe that lack of instinctual issue, but you can use him in some fun, interesting ways. Your group has gotten younger because he's still pretty young. I believe he's 27. So your linebacker group's gotten younger. They've gotten, you know, less injury prone, and they've also just gotten like more athletic, physical, I think, at these spots, which is fun because he's a guy you can use him as a blitzer too, get him downhill. These guys kind of have complementary skill sets. Probably not your like usual early down linebacker, unless you come out on base. Like, I think he can be a linebacker in like a 3 linebacker set where he's playing more of as like a Sam. Get him in with overhang and stuff like that. But he still has some fun tape to work with. Definitely a signing that I think is pretty solid. Not gonna super it's a cheap move, so you would like that because he's not gonna be like a super break the bank player for you. But yeah. So many ways to like him here. Here, they line up a receiver in the backfield. Teams do this now. They line up receivers in the backfield to get them one-on-one with a linebacker. Look how he plays this, man. Like, if you keep it simple, like he's just got one responsibility, and it's reading this guy, then he can win with his reactive athleticism instead of, sometimes people want to be a little more proactive. He's got really good reactive athleticism. So get him out there. He stays square. This receiver has a two-way go, a lot of space to work with, and look at him just match that pretty nicely. Stay tight, and it actually turns into an interception because of the coverage you had. You can see it from this angle as well, from kind of flying out his stance to match that leverage and then getting back to square and under control to be in a position to make a play there to allow you to get that turnover. That's really impressive from his athletic standpoint, and that's all from last season, so like this is still pretty fresh for him. Here's the speed and range to get to the sideline. As I was saying, like, he's responsible for one thing, and it's, the running back, once he motions here, he becomes responsible, like, one-on-one for the running back. You can see the communication because 20 over here was man-to-man on him, but once it flips, him and they swap responsibility, so he's man-to-man, and then look at him just explode out there and make that play. You can see it from the other view here as well. Look at that range, man. He flies. Like, and if you look at his athletic testing numbers, that was showing all over his film and in college too. It's just he's not your true off-ball read, instinctual player. But they've kind of done, like, remember what they did with the D-line room last year where they just added a bunch of bodies that were like kind of young, fresh, other than Calais, but he was obviously good. They kind of did the same thing with the linebacker room, got younger, fresher bodies, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a rotation with some of these people. I think Dotson will be the starter opposite Brooks, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the other two get playing time, even without injuries happening. So yeah, here, one-on-one matched up in the slot on Evan Ingram, a good receiving tight end. He takes away, that quick option out route. He's able to match it, stay with it. Dolphins linebackers kind of struggled to cover last season. Even like Brooks at times, but Brooks was clearly your best option there. And then Dotson brings some coverage ability, and then, you have KJ Bray, who's not a great cover guy, but he brings a really physical, old-school style versus the run if you want him out there in certain situations. So here they try to, work him down the field. He sticks with it. He can carry down the field, just staying in the hip pockets of things. Here he is just playing like as a drop zone defender. Wouldn't say he's super instinctual in this part of the game too, but he can gain depth. If it's kept simple and things are kept in front of him, I think when things get behind him, he gets a little, out of sorts when he's like just pure, like just reading the QB routes behind him. But like here, he's finding the receiver, getting out to a spot, then getting his eyes back to the quarterback, taking away a specific zone, and then once he sees the QB go to the check down, he has the athleticism, speed to get down there and, limit that gain. So playing from like, these high-low type of concepts, top-down situations, Willie Gay Jr. can make plays like that as well. And that's kind of where you see it. Here he is as an overhang. Like there was times where like I was watching the end zone view, and he wasn't even on the screen, and he's a linebacker, which is, pretty unlikely because you got your two off balls here. He's out here as an overhang defender. Asking a linebacker to do this is pretty uncommon in today's NFL. The fact that he could go out here and, drop into coverage in this situation, but also come downhill, be a guy that gets, isolated on a quarterback, able to trip up Bryce Young in that situation, make a play. It's just interesting usage that I wanted to point out here, that he has that sort of speed, change of direction, explosiveness, that he can do those things in those types of spots. He also has a lot of reps. Like he actually kind of split some reps at edge last year compared to off ball as well. So this is another thing, some versatility there. On the backside of outside zone with a sifting tight end, he's able to get down laterally, still maintain his gap responsibility, but he's constricting the run lane, and he's staying square, so he allows himself to avoid the block of the tight end. Look at him, avoid the block of the tight end, use his hands, still stay square, and then, help get a hit on the running back there around the line of scrimmage. The other linebacker makes a tackle, but I do think he looks more comfortable as a true run defender when he's playing like off the edge like this. He shows at least more natural ability. Then he does some stuff like this, just let him run and chase, man. He's just a run and chase linebacker. Sometimes, he's trying to like look around, maybe takes a false step or two. But once he's just like, I'm just going to go after the quarterback, get my hands up, knock that ball down, ball gets incomplete. Just good work. You can just see him flying, man. He's got some insane speed. Here he is in coverage. Like I'm saying, like when he's in coverage, the guy's just kept in front of him, comes into his spot, and he can just stick with it. That's when he's going to make plays. And the ball just gets thrown right to him. Pick, turn this into a nice play. Doesn't end up scoring, but that's really kind of where he can make some money. And then versus the run, like when he did make plays versus the run, it was just sort of basic flow. He flows with the whole team, and then he just sort of shoots down. Like when he sees space open up, he sort of just shoots down. He's never going to be a guy that makes like the super impressive play versus the run where it's like, oh, he has to work through the trash. This guy was going to cut back. He has to scrape over the top and somehow get to this gap. That's not his game, but he can just run downhill, maybe throw a body on an offensive lineman, or just fill a pretty big gap and make a tackle in the backfield. Those are kind of where like most of his reps came in those situations. Sometimes he kind of just looks unnatural out there. Like he still makes this play, but sometimes when there's like a rub or like another receiver working towards him, he does look like he kind of panics a little bit. But even then, when he slows down, he's still able to get out there and get into a spot to knock that ball out on a throw to the tight end out in the flat, that he can match that. That's always, I think, still pretty helpful that you have a linebacker on your roster who doesn't necessarily have to start, that can take that thing away. Even when aligned at edge, he can blitz, but he can also drop into coverage, take away some quick throws here, and then once it turns into a little bit more scramble drill, stick with it, carry Kate on down the field. Good work there from Willie. And then here, as I was saying, like, he gets bumped over. He's responsible for this B gap. No alignment comes up to him. He sees the space open up. He'll shoot down on that play, and if the running back works into him, he'll help make that tackle, like that time on Bucky Irving. Those are kind of the run plays that you see from him. And he can blitz. Like, he has that closing speed. Here, look at him just close down, get that sack on Baker Mayfield. He does a good job of like finishing his tackles too. Like if he gets you wrapped up, like he finishes through you, combines like that speed. Here he is setting the edge, kind of gets a little too far upfield, but I like how he's able to, realize that this was a run and then peel back off of it, help make this tackle. And then he also goes for the strip, knocks that ball out. He strips it and recovers. That's a nice play late in the game there from Willie Gay Jr. As I was saying, like when it's a run play, one flow of the play, he'll flow with it and he'll just shoot downhill. He's not going to be super patient and try to be like, oh, is he going to cut here, go over here? Do I have to read and react? No, he's not a read and react linebacker. He's a just get downhill, throw his body into someone, and then hope that it ends up working out. That's why I still, he'll make some plays in that situation, but it sometimes gets him out of his spots as well. But here you can see just the athleticism, He stays patient here. Good job staying square. He understands, like, with the quarterback situation that he can pull this and run, so he wants to stay on the backside of this play. Also, the flow of stuff that's happening, get out here in space, potentially gain some depth. Once he sees, like, he's got to be the one to take Daniels, he gets downhill and, actually ends up getting a sack on that play, even though it goes for, like, 0. He actually had a really good game against Miami. This one here, he actually is sorting through trash. Dolphins are, working some gap scheme action. They're down blocking here, pulling the right guard. He's actually able to read this, maybe a little bit late, but he's actually able to scrape over the top, take the fullback on. That's like one of the few examples of him actually doing that. So that was interesting to see. He still didn't look super comfortable doing it, but he actually made the play in that situation. That's just a little more rare from him. He actually was the one that stripped Mostert in that game. He will go for the strips, potentially create some turnovers, beats the block of the receiver there. But yeah, it's more of the coverage stuff. He can gain depth, take away a deeper throwing lane, and then close underneath, make an open field tackle like this. Those are kind of situations where I prefer him. He will lose sometimes the coverage as well. Like, as I'm saying, he's not the most, like, he's more playing with reactive athleticism out in space versus, routes. He's not like an anticipator. So sometimes, like, if he kind of, gets beat on a route, like, gets slightly out of position, he will lose because he's not anticipating the exact route. So, like, here he loses versus the tight end. Like, we saw the first route versus a receiver actually win on that exact play. He does, end up making the tackle. He's a guy that does, like, even when he does get beat, end up chasing it down and making a tackle. But that is something, like, it's the instincts that are kind of the question marks with his game. And why I don't think he's going to, be like a full-time starter for you, but he is a guy that will definitely see some significant snaps, whether there's injuries or even just like a part of a rotation. There's definitely intriguing ways to use all three guys because him, Dotson, and Britt all have pretty differing skill sets. So will be interesting to see how Weaver kind of throws them out there next to Jordan Brooks, especially because I think certain matchups, whether you're facing like certain teams that may have more athletic speed weapons out there that like to throw the ball, and you want him out there, or they're more of a run-heavy team, maybe see KJ Britt out there more often in those games. So if you guys are doing like comment, subscribe,